Georgia's constitutional court has rejected a lawsuit seeking to overturn the disputed result of October's parliamentary elections. The opposition and the pro-EU president had alleged interference in the poll, which was won by the governing Georgian Dream Party. Meanwhile, for a fifth successive night, riot police have fired tear gas at protesters in the capital, Tbilisi. Draped in the red and white flag of Georgia and singing the country's national anthem, the demonstrators launched fireworks at the police. Protesters are accusing the governing Georgian Dream Party of election fraud and of betraying the nation's long-standing ambition of joining the European Union and of pivoting towards Russia. Correspondents say there's no sign of either side backing off.
The primary responsibility for yesterday's violent rally lies with the relevant European politicians and bureaucrats, as well as the local agents, the fifth column, represented by 4 political parties. Yesterday, it also became clear to everyone that all parties are fully aware of the situation. The radicals and their foreign patrons, however, continuously attempt to fabricate excuses to destabilize the country and push for the Ukrainization of Georgia. What they have yet to understand is that, unlike Ukraine in 2013, Georgia is an independent state with strong institutions and, most importantly, an experienced and wise population whose resilience cannot be shaken. The Maidan scenario will not take place in Georgia. Georgia is a sovereign state and the Georgian government will not allow it.
That's the Georgian Prime Minister there. Well, for his assessment, I'm joined now on the line from London by the European Affairs analyst, Dr. Marek Laskiewicz. Great to see you, Dr. Laskiewicz. First of all, your reaction to the news that Georgia's constitutional court has rejected a lawsuit seeking to overturn the disputed result of those October parliamentary elections. The opposition, the pro-EU president, had alleged interference in the poll, which was won by the governing Georgian Dream Party, but the Constitutional Court has now rejected that assertion.
Yes, well, the key point is who controls the court. And as far as I can tell, the court is, of course, part of the state there, and therefore this result was not unexpected. It doesn't actually change much either way. Had it gone the other way, had it been deemed illegal, the elections, then, of course, there would have been a huge difference. As things stand, we're back to where we were before, if you like, sort of status quo antebellum, and in that sense. And what's going to happen now is the protests will carry on for some time. What it actually means is that the protests don't have a legal basis as they would have had the court decided otherwise. And therefore, I expect them to carry on, but not necessarily to get anywhere. Of course, because Georgia is very far away from the West as well, which does not help.
That's very interesting. Of course, we're looking at pictures there of another night and day of tense confrontations between police and demonstrators. Does it then look to you like this situation is going to continue to deteriorate?
I'm not sure the word deterioration with respect to yesterday or the day before is the correct term. It appears to be at more or less the same level. I grant you the fireworks are spectacular, but and they look good, it has to be said. But I don't think it actually changes much. The central problem is, will the government accept that it has to change its stance and, in fact, perhaps hold elections again? And the answer is quite clearly no, because we saw the Georgian Prime Minister speaking there. And in that respect, it could be more like the situation in China, where, look at Hong Kong. I think years of protests have got absolutely nowhere. And it's likely to be the same case in Georgia as well, especially when the president resigns in a few weeks' time because her term of office is over.
Yes, hopefully I'd like to talk a little bit about that in a moment. But I'm just wondering, in your sort of assessment of these developments in a country like Georgia, how unprecedented is what we've been seeing in the last few days? Because, I mean, it looks like people have simply had enough of the government making decisions without asking them what they want.
Well, that is quite true. I think there are many people who are dissatisfied, and as far as one can tell, they're the younger people as opposed to the older ones. And it is quite true that the government has indeed, I think, quite tactlessly made that announcement quite needlessly about no longer taking part in the talks, which is then backpedaled on, of course, just recently. However, the point is, can the people change the government? And the answer would appear, as things stand, no. It's closer to the situation saying Hong Kong than it ever was in saying Ukraine. And therefore, this being the case, the protest will continue, but unless a further step is taken by the protesters, nothing much will come of it.
And I mean, there had been protests already for a couple of weeks, and then came the government's announcement that it is suspending EU accession talks. But the Prime Minister appears to have rowed back on those comments. I mean, is it now clear what the government intends to do with respect to the EU?
Oh, I think that he's only made a tactical withdrawal. In other words, seeing that his comment inflamed the situation, he's, so to speak, annulled it. But that does not mean to say that his plan has altered. It is quite clear he's not going to seek EU membership. And as soon as the president is actually retired and the elections are held, and if the elections especially produce a candidate more to his liking, therefore this plan will return. And I don't believe that Georgia will be seeking accession to the EU in the near future. In any case, please note, the EU has itself altered these talks before, saying that Georgia was not ready for the EU. So therefore, it is unlikely in the coming year, or indeed coming years, judging by the situation, that Georgia will be trying to get into the EU.
Indeed. And you mentioned the president there. I mean, as if the protests aren't enough, we've had the president saying she's not going to go at the end of her term because the parliament isn't legitimate and therefore can't choose a successor. Do you see where this goes from here? Is this likely to get a lot messier?
Yes, it will be messier. If she refuses to resign, the situation then will be that in terms of the law, because the Constitutional Court has decided that the elections were legal, in terms of the law, she will be an illegal president and therefore not a president at all. In the case of what the people would like and herself, in their eyes, she will still be a president. However, it is most unlikely that she will be able to hold out in the sense of being a meaningful president of any sort, if indeed she can be termed a president, considering that on strict legal terms, she won't be.
Dr. Laskiewicz, do you see a situation where if things continue to escalate, they will get to a point where the Georgian government and its security service is unable to stay on top of the situation and they may be forced to call on Moscow to intervene?
That is certainly a possibility. I would say myself that it's not clear what this escalation would be. More people taking to the streets will, of course, be an obvious one. And it obviously is the case that the police might find it hard to control, but it depends what you mean by control. As it is, the police are holding their line. The result of this is there's a great deal of melee, if you like, of protesters, but they're not exactly going anywhere. And therefore, I don't anticipate, as things stand, that the Georgian people will be able, those protesting Georgian people, to be accurate, will be able to force the situation. But as you rightly say, should there be many more people on the streets, and there may be a possible Russia will intervene, but I doubt they will come in willingly, in the sense that it would be a further escalation for Putin. And I'm not sure it would benefit him. So I don't think they're going to be willingly intervening. but it is a possibility, yes.
Well, thank you for the clarity of your assessment. Dr. Marek Laskiewicz is the European Affairs Analyst. He was talking to me on the line there from London.